to the Deep Rooted Podcast. We're Jeff and Rochelle, and we're excited to be joining with you today. Our podcast really, I hope you enjoy it, and it's here really to talk about how God wants to do incredible things through his people, and he wants us to be deep and rooted in his word, and so we're kind of hitting that today, just kind of in that vein.
Absolutely. So today the title of this podcast is Stop Being a Baby. Stop, put away the bottle, put away the pacifier, stop being a baby. And we'll talk about what that means. So what do we mean when we say stop? Why are we even talking about this today? What do we mean when we say stop being a baby?
I think we're talking about this because, I mean, you've said this, and I think you've read it. Like, this probably isn't a term that you coined, although, you know, if you did, correct me, scholar. But that we live in a society in regression. Like, I know we want to talk about, hey, we're progressing as a society and, you know, all these things are getting better. I really don't think that's what's happening. I think we're regressing, going backwards in just especially in maturity.
Murray Bowen was actually the person to coin that term, and he looked at society and said that people's maturity was really just regressing as a society. And if you look at even right now, it's continuing to get more pronounced. I mean, we have individuals who are less mature now. And it's becoming a problem. There's a quote from Dallas Willard that I love, and he talks about a family, but you could apply this to any part of life. He says, if you live in a family with emotional babies, it's not a good place to be. We all need people around us who are able to have emotions and feelings and desires under the governance of what is good. And what he means by that, if you read it in context, under the governance of Christ, of the Holy Spirit. And so it is not a good place to be, whether it's a family, whether it's a church, whatever it is, if we're walking around and we are living around it, or we ourselves are emotional babies. And so I think that's the heart of this, because as we look out, we see people wanting their own way. We see people that are fighting, that are quarreling over seemingly crazy stuff. I mean, violence on aircraft is like increasing.
We've seen it. Like, we've been in airports where we saw, like, literally, I can think of the time we were in a California airport and we saw two grown men. I mean, we're talking 60-year-old, 70-year-old men who were literally... They got into like a fist fight.
They did.
Like the flight, I don't know, the guy who's taking your tickets, whatever the ticket counter man, you know, he's having to step in and like say, hey, if you guys don't cool it off, like, you're not flying today. Nobody's going to be flying today. You're not getting where you want to go. And I mean, I'm just seeing this, like, if you're thinking, no, Rochelle, Jeff, you're wrong. Our society is improving. I'd tell you to look at the statistics, and we're going to do a podcast coming up here in a couple of weeks about this, but you see things on the decline. Like, you see marriage on the decline, the amount of people getting married. And you might say, well, that's just a societal, like, construct. No, marriage is a biblical construct. And frankly, I mean, I can understand why some people are going, I'd rather not get married than marry this emotional baby. And I think there's some wisdom in that, you know, but you're seeing things like that on the decline. I mean, you're seeing teenagers and young adults who are not able to do things for themselves that are just like basic, like scheduling a doctor's appointment, holding a job, these kind of things. And so we're seeing a society in regression. We're seeing people not be able to function. I read a book several years ago about markers of when you know you've made it to an adulthood. And I mean, I can guarantee you if I listed some of those off, like, you would find them offensive because like now it's like becoming like, you don't ever really need to do that and be an adult. Well, I would like differ. I would differ. I'd say, you need, you know, there's some markers of like, you're not really an adult if you're not doing some of these things. So we're seeing this regression, and it's impacting people emotionally and spiritually. And if we're, you know, nothing is just apart from it all. Like, so this is impacting families.
Absolutely.
This is impacting the next generation. Like, I want to just like ring the alarm bell. I don't know, sound the alarm. Like, we're not helping some of these kids.
Right. And this is why we're passionate about this, because if we mature, families, churches, workplaces are going to be places that are life-giving.
And helping others who are not yet mature get there, instead of saying you're good where you are. Right,
and not places that are draining and just places of chaos. And so come up with a few things,
Well, like the Deep Rooted podcast is for leaders. It's for married people. It's for single people. It's for parents.
Yes.
It's for people who want to impact this world for Christ. And so we kind of wanted to talk about just this whole idea of stop being a baby in your marriage and in your parenting and in your leadership. And so that's kind of some of the things we're going to talk about here. So
so marriage, I laugh because it's true. Marriage isn't for babies. I love what I think it's
like, it's like obvious, but
I think it's Dr. Henry Cloud that says marriage is a contract between two grown adults.
Yes.
You can't be an emotional baby, spiritual baby, just wanting your own way,
and have a thriving marriage.
Now, you can be legally married.
Yeah, you can be legally married and be all those things,
but having a thriving marriage where you're adding value to each other. So marriage isn't for babies. Let's unpack that a little bit. I think it's so important that thriving marriages, they add value. And if I don't understand that I'm a whole person and I'm not an emotional, mature person, I can't add value to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead, I'll be looking for your approval. I'll be looking for you to give me something that I need to live, And so I can't be a baby as a husband. I'll just say that.
I'm very glad. No, I mean, there was a popular movie, I think it was like in the 90s or something. I'm not endorsing it by any means. But, what came out of it was kind of like a phrase that people would use, like, you complete me.
So romantic.
And that sounds so romantic and it sounds beautiful, but it's so doctrinally wrong.
Absolutely. Yes.
So doctrinally wrong. Like, I love you. God placed us together for a reason. He put you with somebody to impact the kingdom, to make you holy, for happiness, all of those things, of course. But who completes me? Christ.
Absolutely, yes.
Christ. And so when we are needing the just that, I need you, I can't be a person without you.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Like, I love you.
Thank you.
A lot. But one thing that I won't say on Facebook in person is, you're my rock.
Why not?
And I kind of feel very non-romantic because here's the thing. You're strong. You're a very strong woman, which is awesome. But you weren't intended to sustain the relationship. And if I look to you as the foundation for our marriage, I'm looking to the wrong fact. I mean, you're great, but Christ is the foundation.
Yeah.
And so, I'd be setting us up for failure if I was like, hey, you're going to provide for us today. I mean,
well, you're going to be enough for both of us.
Yes.
You've got to sustain us. So what does this really look like? I think it really talks about, and when we're encouraging and talking to other people about getting into relationships, encourage wholeness in Christ.
Yes.
Before saying, oh yeah, you need this person.
No.
I mean, this is so important. I think it's modeling it. I mean, what marriages are our kids and this next generation seeing? Are they seeing marriages that, are with two whole individuals who have a purpose for the kingdom, but it's not so that they can somehow just keep each other strong in these crazy times? So marriage isn't supposed to be for babies. It's for two grown adults, a man and a woman.
Absolutely.
Very particularly.
Yeah.
But I also think something I'm super passionate about is that parents aren't supposed to be babies. And wow, we have such a phenomenon of this.
Well, I hear this a lot, is we look to our kids for approval. We look to our kids for value. I hear this a lot just in the world. And I will say what we're creating is we're creating a codependency on our children when we're not the adult, when we're not the mature person. And that really puts a burden on our kids. Yeah. A burden they can't bear, they weren't intended to bear. And so parents aren't supposed to be babies simply because we're supposed to be the leaders, moms and dads of our homes. And we can't really serve our kids. We can't disciple our kids if we're babies ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, wow. I just think kids need adults.
Yeah.
Kids need parents who are willing and able to be the adults. Mm-hmm. Emotional adults, spiritual adults, that there is maturity. I mean, literally, our kids are like swimming in a sea of immaturity, just in like friend groups and all of these things. I mean, this is part of growing up, but they need those stable people in their lives who mom and dad are saying, no, you know what? We're going to be the mature ones. I don't need to be your friend. And I know we talked about that in a previous podcast, but who are able to set the boundaries. I just can't tell you that this is what kids need beyond anything. And what we have is parents wanting just so desperately to have the approval of their kids. Wow.
Yeah. I think kids want to come home and know that there's something solid there. Even if they would disagree in the moment, I think kids want to know that mom and dad's going to tell them the truth regardless. And we can't tell our kids the truth. We can't encourage our kids. We can't empower our kids if we're looking for them for approval,
Absolutely.
So I think that's huge.
I got to jump in and say one more thing on this because, there's like kind of funny things. And I know like it can be just funny, but a lot of times what we joke about can really reveal a lot of things. Many a truth is said in jest. And so, you have like these shirts going around, and you may not have seen it because you're not in like mom world.
I'm not in mom world, and I'm not in mom's Facebook groups for a reason.
But you have like mom or like, mother, like all these little like words on a shirt, and then it like kind of devolves into bruh. BRUH, like bruh.
Are you serious?
Like you're my bruh. I
didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, like we didn't even chat.
Oh my goodness.
And like kind of like that's what I'm gonna call you.
Wow.
No. N-U-H. No. 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 Like I'm just making up words here. No, like I'm mom.
Yeah.
I'm mom.
Yeah.
Mother, mama. That's fine. Like whatever. But not your bra.
Mom, not your bra.
And that's the thing. Like we're not the same. Like, and I know you might be like, well, you're like repeating.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because it needed to be repeated. Like.
Say it again.
No, seriously. Like.
It's true. It's good.
This is not. We're not here on the same emotional place.
Exactly.
And okay, I want to talk about, and maybe we need to talk about this in the next thing with leaders.
Maybe. Leaders aren't supposed to be babies.
So marriage isn't for babies. Parents aren't supposed to be babies. And this is a clarion call to leaders to act like leaders.
Yes. And we're in the church world, so we're also, we're talking about leaders anywhere. We're not about leaders, like, but leaders teachers, in the church as well.
Administrators, but we're talking
Can we just tell leaders, like literally, our world needs leaders who aren't afraid to be adults. What I mean by that?
Goodness.
What I mean by that, emotional adults, spiritual adults, people who are going to say what literally needs to be said because it's for the edification of people. It's for the encouragement of people, regardless of the blowback you're going to get, okay? If you're going to be a leader, you will get blowback. You will get pushback.
It's just part of it.
People are going to come against you, but it's those leaders who say, you know what, I understand, but I'm gonna do it regardless. Those are the leaders that have the greatest benefit to offer. You name it. People in the church, people under your leadership. I learned the best from coaches who didn't care whether I liked them or not. I learned the most from coaches and teachers who, honestly, at the end of the day, they didn't care if I went, if I liked them. They cared about that I learned what they were teaching.
So they weren't your bra.
They weren't my bra.
Okay. But seriously, we've got to talk about this, that leaders, this is not about age maturity.
Yes.
And I think we have to hit this for a second, that your age does not determine your emotional and like spiritual maturity. And sometimes it does. Like sometimes the elders of age are the elder spiritually and maturity and maturity wise. And I think that's beautiful when those coincide. But just because somebody's old or advanced or served in something for a certain number of years, and I'm saying that from somebody who's done something for 20 years. So I guess I don't know, I'm entering this like middle age thing. Weird. I know. Let's not even talk about that.
What, bro?
So that does not always coincide. And on the flip side, there are some young people who are not emotionally and spiritually immature. They are mature. And so this is not age. This is how you respond. This is who has the governance. Is it the Holy Spirit or is it self? Can I just tell you, leaders, stop pouting.
Yes.
Stop pouting when you don't get your own way.
Oh my, yes.
And stop backbiting and trying to retaliate when things don't go the way that you thought. Guess what? That's part of leadership. That's part of life. You don't always get your own way. Babies always whine about not getting their own way. They cry until they get it.
And when they get it, then they'll stop crying.
And this is not what mature individuals do.
Yes.
They accept how things are. Does that mean that they just say, oh, well, it is what it is? No.
Yeah.
Maybe you fight back with maturity, with wisdom, not by pouting.
I think that's how you define, like someone might be asking, like, how can you tell if someone's mature? I think you can tell someone's mature by how a good litmus test, how they respond to adversity. So if, for example...
How do they respond when you say no?
Yeah, if a physical baby does not respond well to adversity, which for obvious reasons...
They're a baby.
They're a baby. I think it's the same thing emotionally and spiritually. If someone just the first time someone says no, or the first time they hit a roadblock and it's pouting, it's all this stuff, well then they're displaying that they're not mature. But leaders, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the pushback, regardless of the adversity, they don't have to be happy about it. But they say, okay, here's a mountain, here's an obstacle. Someone said no, I'm getting something I don't like. Okay, what do I have to do next?
And what are you trying to say in this, God? What are you trying to show me? Maybe not even about my own faults. Yeah. Maybe just about how you want to do things.
That's good.
Now, maybe it is about our own stuff, that we need to work on. But I mean, I think about this with like a 2-year-old child. You say no to them, they may not respond very great. But here's the deal. You're training your kids to respond in an appropriate way as they get older. If you say this to a 10 or 12 or 15-year-old, if you say no and they sit on the floor and throw a fit, there's a problem. Yeah. And yet this is what is happening in our world. Yes. Like literally, I'm a soccer coach for multiple teams. Multiple teams. And so literally you won't be able to pick out who it was or whatever. I've done it for many, many years. And so it could be any season that I'm referring to. I'm just saying that because like some of the parents listen to this. Here's the deal. Like if I look at a kid and say, hey, we're going to dribble for a few minutes and we're working on dribbling, and they sit down and they say no, there's a problem. Like there's an immaturity problem.
But what if they just don't want to?
No, these are true stories. What? This is what they do. What happens when you're watching a advanced level soccer game? I won't even say what level. And you have people yelling, kids yelling from the sideline things like inappropriate words. And yet people laugh at this. This is a society in regression. Yes. And what we are calling here for Deep Rooted is that, hey, you know what? Marriage, parenting, leadership, all of this is not for babies. But it's not just enough to say to ourselves, okay, we got to be emotionally and spiritually mature. Let's, insulate ourselves. No, this is the fact that those who are deep-rooted, those who are like, not on my watch, guess what? They're going to call others to a higher standard. So they're going to say, to their kids, you're acting immaturely.
Mm-hmm.
You can't act that way. Maybe they say it, if you're a pastor, you say it to people in your congregation, hey, I love you. Can I just help you here? You're responding very immaturely. When I'm counseling you in marriage issues and this is what we're talking about, there needs to be some growth here.
Yeah.
We have got to not just worry about ourselves. We have got to help others grow up.
Do spouses say that to each other?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I don't know. Have we ever said that to each other? Is that a different podcast?
Probably a different one. I
feel like there might be moments in our life where we said, hey, I just feel like you're responding immaturely.
Can I say I'm grateful for those moments?
But it comes from a place of love. It's not a place of like, I don't like you. It's a place of, I don't like how you're acting. Like, that doesn't mean I don't like you. It's, I know that there is more in there.
And that's the thing right here. We're talking about stop being babies, not because, just stop it. There's more in you.
Yes.
Parents, leaders, in spouses, husbands and wives, there's more in you. And when we come up a level, what happens is we raise everyone else around that. We raise the maturity level of the family. We raise the maturity level of the church. And it's really incredible when the leaders, when the moms and dads, when the parents begin to raise their level of maturity, because we will see, rather than a society in regression, we will see a society that begins to mature and will raise that level of maturity. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that if we are in regression, which, let's look at facts.
Yep.
It just is. Things are even different in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It just is. Things are different in the last 5 years. It is not irreversible.
No, absolutely not.
And yet it's going to take some really courageous people.
Yeah.
It's going to take some really courageous people who are going to not compromise and who are just going to believe that, okay, maybe I can't change the whole world, but I can change those who I have influence over. And you know what? If we don't do anything, think about what we will see in 10 and 20 years.
Wow.
The thought of that should be enough to say, okay, it's time to wake up.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to encourage you, raise the level of maturity. You can do it. And while you're doing that, share this podcast. And it really does. It really gets the word out. Share the podcast, rate, review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and subscribe to YouTube. Hey, someone needs to hear this, and we want to encourage you. Hey, just let's raise the level of maturity wherever you are today. All right? Can't wait to see you right here on the next episode of the Deep Rooted Podcast. We will see you then.